third episode of the Launch Your Farm show, where I interview Matt Santagapita from Remax in London, Ontario. And in today's episode, Matt and I talk about how supporting local businesses is good for your business, for the community, for those businesses, their pockets, and yours. We discuss why online content can trump offline content and can be done at a fraction of the cost. We also talk about why video is the king of content, but blogs are still crushing it too. Matt shares how you can turn your passions into great content for your business and for your database. We also talk about how segmenting your database can create tremendous opportunities for sharing that content with your database. Plus, we talk about a ton of other great topics, so be sure to listen to this episode, let us know what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe at the end. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Matt. Thanks for joining us again today on Launch Your Farm. Today we got a great guest. It's Matt Santagapita from London. So Matt, why don't you take a second, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your business.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me. So again, my name is Matt Santagapita, and I am the, owner, operator of the Santa Cells Houses team in London, Ontario. We service everything from London to, if you were to take a pencil and draw about an hour around London, that's kind of like the area that we service. So Elstar is our board. So I started my career in 2008 as a single agent right in the middle of the financial collapse in the United States, which was fun.
Yeah.
Because in Canada, we didn't really feel it, but what we did have is kind of like a moment where people just kind of held their breath and weren't really sure what was going to happen. So, I think when you enter your career in a time like that, you learn that you have to work for the business. You didn't enter it at the easiest time. So a lot of what we do is kind of based off the idea that, things are great right now, but at some point they won't be. So whatever exercises or activities we're working on, they better have, call it an evergreen effect is what we call it.
Yep.
So that means that they don't have an expiry date, if that makes sense.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, actually I started in 2008 as well. And I know when I started, my friends and family were like, oh man, this is a horrible time. And my thought was, this is a great time. I'm learning it from the bottom and it's not in a good market. And if I can succeed in that, then I can definitely succeed as when things are hot. Yeah. So let's talk about the evolution of your business, because you were a solo agent and then let's talk about your brand and then how you've shifted and what your business looks like now.
Yeah. So I, like most people, started as a single agent, went into really good production very quickly. I had a lot of good mentors that kind of gave me some pointers, helped me along. I was also, at the time, I was also a real estate investor. I bought my first property when I was 19. I'm now 40, so it's quite a bit of time in the industry while not trading. And as you get busier, you just start to realize, okay, real estate should be a business. The way we do it as a single agent, in a lot of cases, doesn't feel like a business because you feel like you're running around doing everything. And I started looking at, how to make this a true business for the long term, for the next 40, 50 years. And so then that's when I started looking at, making my first hire, which was hiring an admin. And the idea there was to have the administrative side of the business managed by another individual, while I focused on, call it lead gen, lead follow-up, showing properties, negotiating contracts, getting properties to close kind of thing, with both buy and sell side. Then from there, hit another evolution again of growth. And then brought on a buyer's agent, and it was just divvying up the, I'll do the listing side, you do the buyer side. Seems to make more sense because they're very different conversations you're having with your client. Yeah. I'm a big believer in it. I also understand that, a lot of times our database, like our sphere, our really good friends only want to work with us for certain things. And I understand that, but at the end of the day, you look at the dentist office, the dentist isn't doing everything. Everybody has their skill sets that work. So, and kind of have grown from there, added more agents. And probably when things kind of got a lot more interesting was when we decided to bring on somebody full-time to handle the marketing side of things.
And that's kind of what we want to go into today is the marketing beast that you're building and working on right now and how that relates to farming. So for you, your brand originally was Santa Sells Homes, and that's a play on your name, obviously.
Yeah,
So
I
talk about
mean,
that, and then we'll kind of go into the next
yeah.
stage.
So when you look at it, right, it's like anybody can do like, the buy in London team, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
from truly when you look at it from a Google SEO perspective, it is a great name. However, there's no real uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
And even though starting with, again, like santasellshouses.com or Santa Sells Houses real estate team, right? Obviously there's a amount of time that takes place for people to really get it and understand it,
Yeah.
but it's memorable.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody else can use it and it would make sense. I mean, if you were to use it, people would be like, I don't understand this. What are you doing?
Yeah. I think
Right.
actually I taught a class at your office years ago, the first time I met you, and you were the one person that stood out.
Mhm.
The name just stood out, and the whole everything stood out. So it works, and I wasn't
Yeah.
in your market center.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of it. Right.
Yeah.
And then from like a farming perspective, I used to do the very old school farming way with, printed newsletters, postcards, where it's, um, the neighborhood gets a just listed, a just sold. You send it a newsletter every, once a month for 12 months. I did it and it works.
Yeah.
Where I started to look at the industry was to do everything in print is much more expensive than doing it in digital or web. And the reason I say that is because, and again, I'm not knocking the old school approach because it still works,
Yep.
right? And I want to make that clear. It still works. It's just if you're going to spend $500 sending out newsletters to a farm, right, a neighborhood, you have to. It's the one-armed bandit in Vegas. You have to keep putting the $500 in it.
Yep.
To maintain your reach,
Yep.
call it. So like you're not getting to more people. You're just, it's to maintain, let's say it's a dollar house, it's 500 homes. So
Yep.
easy math, right?
Yep.
All you're doing is hitting that. If you pivot that to online, the thing is you have staying power. And then the other thing is you have content that keeps getting layered on top of content. And anybody who spends any time understanding how search engines work and visibility and SEO and all these things, you realize that, wait a minute, that's the downside to print, is that it's a one-armed bandit. You have to keep feeding it for the exact same results.
Yep.
Whereas if you pivot onto a digital platform, that could be any social media platform, and like best example of farming in comparison to a neighborhood with a mailer piece would be creating a Facebook group around a neighborhood, and you're the admin and you control it.
Yep.
But then what it allows you to do is you can manipulate your content. So if you put it on a blog, it lasts forever and it brings you long-term organic SEO. And I think a lot of people forget that. And last time I checked, the internet's not going away.
Exactly. And that a lot of people don't realize that the longer it's there, the better Google ranks it. And people, like I've always said, after a year of putting out content, the year mark has always been what I've found is that key time, and people give up usually before then. And if you keep piling on top of it, after a year, it starts skyrocketing. And I know
it's like a hockey stick.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, and it's just like as that time factor, what you accomplished from reach in a year, you'll then get in 6 months, and then you'll get in 3, and like that's eventually it plateaus again. But that's the idea. Yeah.
So let's delve into your crazy idea, because you're doing something really unique and not done by a lot of people, and not even understood by a lot of people. It's a lot of work. So why don't we kind of talk about what you're working on and how that relates to farming?
Yeah. So when we brought in or started our, I'll call it marketing team, right? We wanted to focus all on digital because the idea was, again, and not to say we can't do the old school, we still do door knocking and just sold postcards, just listed postcards, but we door knock it versus just blanketing an area.
Yeah.
What we use is a blog and then social media platforms to target specific people. And first, what we did is I wanted to make sure that the platform we were using wasn't controlled by a third party. And I think that's one mistake that I see people making. And so that's if you have easiest way would be if you have an IDX website and there's a blog attached to it, to put everything on that blog. Because here's the problem. You maybe like the company right now, and maybe they are great. Yeah. However, you have no idea what their financials look like. They could go belly up tomorrow. Somebody could buy them and shut them down. A new person could buy them and change the company and change the platforms and do things that you don't like. So we wanted to make sure we had a platform that we could control on our own. And the easiest thing to do is you really just create a WordPress blog and, you know, do a bunch of UI, UX work to it, and things look great.
Yep.
So we started as Santa Knows Best. Again, play on my last name because it's funny. And what we started to do is we didn't really want to, like, we kind of brainstormed around some ideas and had some conversations with people. And one conversation that occurred at the same time when we were looking at this was with a good friend of mine, Andrew. And it was how so many people in London think London's boring.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, that's true. Like, and I'm like, I'm kind of one of them. And it's because, I mean, if you're in a big city and you live on whatever side, the west side, north side, east side, south side, it's very rare for you to spend a lot of time on the opposite side of the city.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of small, interesting businesses that are flourishing everywhere. And when you really start thinking about the role of a realtor, it's not just to know a neighborhood, it's to know the city.
Yeah.
You know, I think our industry went a little squirrely when the internet really became something, because it's like, I don't know, just Google it. And well, the reality, I think was right. Like the reality, like I got a phone book somewhere around here on my shelf. I don't know where it is. Maybe I moved it. But a realtor kind of pre-internet was a Yellow Pages, a White Pages. It was a Google review, a Yelp review, a Facebook review.
Yeah.
You were that person who was connected to the community, who people would call if it was like, hey, I need an electrician. And it's like, hey, Matt, who's the electrician I should call? Like, and you knew 5 of them.
Yeah.
And that kind of went away. So we looked at that concept and that idea in one part. We also looked at, okay, some people think the city's really boring. And we said, okay, like, how can we start to showcase what the city really has using geographical farming principles of old school belly to belly real estate? And so then we fired up this blog and we started doing business reviews. So we just go and, well, not necessarily business interviews. So we'd go and interview small, medium business owners in the city. And we just talk about what they're doing. Like, what is their vision? What do they sell? How is their market? How is their industry changing? And we got some crazy traction off that.
Yeah.
But then we would also do things like, you know, the best pizza in town, the best nachos in town, the best chicken wings in town, the best burgers, the best restaurants to go to on your birthday, because why wouldn't you? As a realtor, that's knowing your city. And it's funny because, you know, before, you know, we've talked about this in the past where it's like everything you do, Matt, has nothing to do with real estate, but everything to do with real estate. Because, you know, if you're a foodie, you'd probably want to live close to a bunch of restaurants, right? And so, like, that's that's understanding your city. That's understanding the neighborhoods.
And that comes back to that whole location. And people think that location just means where's the house located, but it's location as far as what's going on in the community, what's around the community, what's involved, and knowing where hot
and
trends
what's in it
are.
For you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the locate. It's not just, hey, that's the number one neighborhood in London. Well, who cares if it's not even close to anything?
Yeah.
Like any place that you go, or your gym, or your work, or like, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, location, to me at least, is more about the individual. Where are their friends? Where are their family? do they go to the gym? Do they like running trails, biking trails? Are they a foodie? Do they like going to hockey game? Like, it's, why wouldn't you want to be in an area that, call it, services your needs
Yeah.
more so than just like, oh, well, it's a nice, this was the neighborhood we were told to buy it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, it's funny, but yeah. And then, so then we've even done like neighborhood reviews, like the list goes on. And I think a lot of people are now starting to understand that it has everything to do with real estate.
Yeah.
And we started to get really busy. So we started to get a lot of businesses reaching out, other people reaching out. We've even had, at the time, we had people where they're like, hey, like, what you're doing is really neat. Would you guys think about, doing some marketing stuff for us? And I'm like, at the time, we're like, no, that's not what this is. Like, we sell real estate. You want to sell your home, sign me up.
Yeah.
But no, and then we started talking about it, saying, okay, well, the basis of everything that we're doing is, we always try and keep in mind it's collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. And whether or not you're even interacting with a person, like what we're doing right now, this is a collaboration. But even if we're just writing a blog post, we're writing about, 4 burger joints in our city that are awesome, that's still collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. Whether or not it's a conversation between 2 individuals or 5 individuals, they end up seeing it. Hey, thanks for the inclusion on your list of top 5 burger joints. Like, it's fun. So since that kind of kept picking up steam, and we got busier and busier, and then we started to get some crazier ideas. And we'd sit there and it's like, okay, like, there's all this small business stuff. And it's like, how come nobody is putting anything together helping small businesses? And interesting times right now globally, right, is the big multinationals, they're fine. They have all the money in the bank. They're fine. Like, but as we were interviewing business owners, we kind of realized we're all the same. We all have, the sleepless night of, I'm not sure if this makes sense. I don't know if, like, where's my next deal coming from? Like, where's my next sale coming from? Like, these are all kind of things that I think every small business owner has. And that's a vulnerable side that we don't really talk about, right?
Yep.
And then it's also, well, how come no one's really doing anything? We had a lot of people, they're like, how come you're doing this? I don't get it. Like, you're a realtor. Why do you care so much? And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know, because like, my answer is, well, the city's my community. I grew up, this, funny enough, little bit of nostalgia here. Where our team office is located is on the 2nd floor of a building that my parents owned, where my father operated a hardware store for 30 years in downtown London. So I grew up sitting around the dinner table, and I was 12 or something. I'm not really sure. And my dad came home one night, and it was like, okay, there's this big box hardware store coming to town. I don't know what this is going to look like in 5 years, right? Because they did an IPO. They had millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They could throw money around to cannibalize the marketplace, and you saw smaller hardware stores disappear. And also, downtown London, for a good 20 years when I was growing up, wasn't really an exciting place.
Yeah.
We didn't have Bud Gardens. We didn't have 2 Fanshawe campuses. We didn't have, dozens and dozens of restaurants and a really interesting nightlife. It was one of those places where, why would you ever go downtown?
Yeah.
But my father was a business owner who believed in the community and believed in staying there to contribute to the turnaround. And now it's an amazing place. We're right on the, Dundas Place, which is a brand new kind of flex street, and we're around all the restaurants, and it's amazing. And so we started looking at, how can we give more? And then we started talking about, okay, maybe let's create another company. Why not? Because why wouldn't you, right? Like, when you're a busy realtor, why don't you just want more on your plate? And we weren't sure what to name it. And we just threw around all these ideas, but like, everything came down to like something to do with local, right? And so then you start looking at Latin words and all these weird things. And I have no idea how we came up with it or found the word, but it was Locorum. And what Locorum essentially means is the protector of the local people. in Latin, right? And because the whole idea is what we are doing is solely centered around those little kind of interesting things that exist in all these different neighborhoods and areas of our city that most people maybe don't know in the city. Like everybody knows where every Home Depot is and every Lowe's is in the city. You just know.
And Tim Hortons.
And Tim Hortons, right? Yeah, but you don't know where, you know, the 17 independent coffee shops are that have, you know, pour over coffee. Most people are like, what are you even talking about? It's like, there you go. That's how coffee is supposed to actually be done, right? Or where there's like special beans that are small batch beans from somewhere and the coffee tastes amazing. Like people don't know.
Yeah.
And so Locorum was born. We are doing a pretty big launch coming up, which is kind of exciting and fun for the timing of this, but it's, you know, and through that we keep doing restaurant reviews, the Best of London series. We have a whole interactive neighborhood map that's coming. And then we're launching something even more interesting, which is, call it, and this is kind of like our ideas keep going and we're just like, yeah, let's do it. Basically, the easiest way to summarize it is kind of like an Amazon for small businesses. So it's shop.locorum.ca, Locorum, Locorum, which we also want to do rum at some point just for fun. But what it is eventually we're going to have a rewards program, which is also launching shortly. So if you use a Locorum approved realtor and mortgage broker, you receive shop credit to spend in store on local small businesses. And so that runs either, there's 3 categories, $500, $750, or $1,000. And the idea is that, you know, because in real estate, you do closing gifts, client appreciation, all of that. And it's our belief is we need to support our local businesses.
Yeah.
And they need the help.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of hard to always try and pick something. So we're just like, well, whatever, let's just, here it is. Like we create the shop, it's all there, it's all organized, it's super easy. We have flat rate shipping at $14.99. And I mean, truthfully, what's even crazier is you can sometimes get your products in 3 hours, which, wow, you know, that's bonkers. So that's kind of like, we kind of took it and said, okay, how crazy can we get?
Yeah.
And it's all related to like from the, you know, like to kind of like pull this back into like the whole geographical farming. I mean, we just basically said, how can we be crazy? You know, instead of saying, let's just focus on, you know, this neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, the level at which we're doing things, well, if we just focused on that one neighborhood, we'd be done in a month.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like maybe not like downtown. Okay, it would take you a while because there's a lot downtown, but it's like Lambeth, that's where I grew up. It wouldn't be, it would like in a month to 2 months, we'd be all done our content.
Yeah. And
don't get me wrong, there's still always things going on, but not to the scale of which we thought. Because, you know, if you're going to think, you might as well think big.
Yep.
And you kind of almost want to be like ridiculous in your thinking because, hey, well, like, let's shoot for the moon. Well, if, you know, we just make it, you know, to the outer layer of the atmosphere, that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, like that's it. I don't know. It's been fun. People love it. We get tons of positive feedback. We get businesses that are reaching out saying like, hey, like, you know, how do you pick this? How do you pick that? And half is we just, you know, for most part, it's flying by the seat of our pants. And who do we know? Like a lot of it is we look for introductions, right? It's like, well, like, hey, like, you know, who do you know that we should be reaching out to? Like, what's a really cool business? And we ask that if we interview a business owner, we say like, who else is doing something neat that London needs to hear about?
And I think the magic part of focusing on the businesses, which a lot of agents will skip over and not realize the value of that, is they've got their own audience, they've got their own customers, they've got their own, hopefully if they're doing social media or any type of marketing, they've got their person. And each one may have its own kind of segment of the market. And when you highlight them, they're more likely to go share it. And I've always used this analogy that if I put an ad in the paper or I send out a postcard, I don't go tell all my friends and family and like, see the ad in the paper I put in or see the postcard I sent out, because no one cares. But if I got featured on something, if someone interviewed me or someone highlighted my business, I'm going to go tell my friends and family and say, look, I got featured on here. And so when you do that with these businesses, they're going to share it on with their audience, and it's going to spread. And a lot of times people don't think that way. They think, well, I just got to get in front of an audience. It's like, well, use other people's audiences, and it doesn't have to cost you very much. And that's the magic of what you're working on, is
Call
you're
it
creating
like ecosystem hacking.
Yeah.
Right. It's, which that's what you're going to do. And that's what I'm going to do as well. I mean, we're doing this video, you're going to post it. You will tap into my ecosystem and I will tap into yours. It's collaboration. And that's, everybody forgets this.
Yeah.
It's even like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say that even now, I think it's even more relevant because of everything that's going on with COVID worldwide, is that the small businesses are going to need that attention even more. And if you can create that for them, like that, there's a tremendous opportunity for agents right now in the next few months, in the next couple of years, if you really focus on the businesses. And I've been preaching before COVID happened that people should be helping the businesses, because it's going to grow your business if you do it right.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're showing up and you're saying you care.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like that's just it. And like, kind of like to talk about, I guess, maybe for some agents who are watching this, for instance, like one of our Monday market update, I think we're at about almost 180 weeks in a row. And because some people, they say, okay, like, again, it's like, how do you really do this? And it's like, when you think about it, when we shoot a Monday market update, if you pay attention to how we do it, we always say where we are. Yeah. And it's not just like, say, London, Ontario, real estate market update. It's you always say where you're located. So we always say like our office is on Dundas Place. So we'll always reference Dundas Place a lot. But then we'll also say things if we're in front of the Covent Garden Market or Budweiser Gardens or in front of Fitzroy's or the Squire Pub or Fanshawe College campus. And what we're doing, just to kind of summarize it for people who really want to get it, we're sending signals to Google to tell them where we are.
Yeah.
And over time, when you keep doing this, it elevates your exposure in this area. Yeah. Right? Google knows we're in real estate. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily know where we are all the time. And it doesn't, and it sounds weird because it kind of should, but it doesn't. But when you can, when you can really just keep giving out signals for like the bots that crawl the internet, it helps. Yeah. And now where it makes sense is not really just in a couple fashions. One is, okay, so you put it on Facebook. What do? Well, you tag the locations you're around. Yeah. Right. On YouTube, you do the same thing. On your blog, you do the same thing. Or let's say you write an article linking to whatever you're around, and you keep it in your spider web.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the small little tricks that doesn't take any extra time. It takes a minute extra to do that, but that makes a big difference.
And this is all you need. Yeah. I mean, we do have fancy gear. Like we have, Sony A7 IIs. We have wireless mics. We have countless pieces of lighting equipment and fancy computers. And I mean, we do have a 60 terabyte hard drive, a Synology hard drive,
that's nuts.
It is crazy. But I mean, with the amount, the thing is the amount of video that we do, you need it because we hold on to everything. Like we have videos from 4 years ago where you're like, they're brutal because the quality has changed so much, but you hold on to these things, right? Because the other thing that it allows you to do is when the whole COVID thing hit, we did we call it the Stay Safe London video. Yep. In 30 days, we had almost 300,000 reach.
Yeah, that was a great video. When you put that out, I'm like, you knocked it out of the park with that one.
Yeah, timing was spot on.
Yeah,
but I mean, truthfully, what delayed us not getting it out faster was the weather. Because there was a few shots where we were just like, hey, this is like, our creative team was like, this is what we want it to look like.
Yeah.
And so, and like when you get into working with creative people, right, it's like, no, I don't want a shot of downtown with it raining or snowing. I don't want any of that. You have to sometimes wait.
Yeah.
But 80% of the footage from that video, we actually already had it in our library.
That's awesome.
because we hold on to everything.
Right.
It's just, you got to find it, and it's all categorized and it's there. I mean, I don't know where it is. If you were to ask me to find something, I have no idea, but our team knows.
So,
And then that's when it becomes important too, when you're talking about farming and isolating into certain neighborhoods,
yeah,
having this type of stuff, if it's short little video clips for things, it's always there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to go out and get new footage, and that's normal.
Yeah.
But like B-roll, we almost have it all.
Yeah, which is awesome. So I want to scale back then, because not everyone's going to be at the same level.
Yeah, we just went like,
so
out of the stratosphere.
Like you talked about 4 years ago, what you were doing is not the same as today. So if someone was to start today and starting on a small scale, what kind of things would you recommend, that if they're not going to go the whole Locorum level, but like what would be a good starting point for someone if they wanted to go after
the biggest starting point that somebody, in my opinion, that a real estate agent should do, or even a mortgage broker, actually, anybody who's in sales of some sort, if you're going to farm an area, make it your neighborhood, because that's where you know the most, right? You know every little, you know the shortcut to get to school to pick up your kids. You know that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just taking this, and it might just be doing a Facebook Live, going for a walk in the neighborhood, show you, hey, like, review, if you're in a neighborhood that has a lot of parks, talking about the parks. Go and interview the principal at the school if they'll let you in the door. Some might. Right? Go and interview all the businesses in your area. And you don't have to, you don't have to do one a day. Even if you just did one of these things a month, that would, call it 2-3 years, and you might be done. I don't know. It depends on your neighborhood. That's it. It's just starting. And it's always starting with something that's easy. So like, for instance, I love coffee. I'm drinking coffee right now. I drink coffee all day long. I love it. It's the greatest thing on earth. So what made total sense for us when we did our first, one of our first, business of the week interviews, it was a coffee shop. Yeah. Because I love coffee. It's easy. It's easy for me to understand and have a conversation about it. Pick something that's easy. If you have kids, you know what? Talk about why your neighborhood's good for kids. Talk about the park. Talk about, the neighborhood does fireworks this day. We do a Canada Day thing here. Like we do, talk about those things. Yeah. If you don't have kids, don't start talking about what families can do, because it's not as natural. Exactly. Move in and progress into that over time. But it's just focusing on, and I always say, you do your neighborhood because you know the most about it. And it's maybe starting, if it was me, from what I've learned, I wouldn't start big picture on the neighborhood of here's 10 things I love about this neighborhood. I would actually start in reverse. Yep. And I would actually start in reverse by doing all the little things, because then eventually when you do actually go and 10 reasons why you should move to downtown London, chances are those 10 things, you've talked about them in previous videos or, written text or, blogs, whatever, and you can link to them, right? I mean, yes, it would be, 10 items would be it'd be a big list with a lot of content. But if you had it on your own blog, like a WordPress platform, you can link out and people can explore that neighborhood that you're talking about. And some people immediately think they have to jump into video. I would agree nowadays you do kind of need to, but maybe it really is just starting with written. However, here's something you can do. If you can do a video and you know the neighborhood, you can then transcribe your video into text, and then you have both. Yep. So if it was me, I would say just warm up to the camera. Yep. And your first one's going to suck. That's it. Yeah. And maybe your fifth one's going to suck. I mean, we laugh about our videos that we did originally, and they're terrible. They're embarrassing. But at the time, it was better than what anybody else was doing. And I think right now, very few people are really doing this stuff.
With you're talking about doing those little things. It's funny because when I first started video years ago, what we thought was going to be a hit with certain videos were not flops, but just didn't go off. And then one or two of these videos that we never even expected took off, and we had thousands of views on this one video. Yeah. And it's like, I'm glad we did that video. So starting with all those small little details or those little things will really help, because you don't know what's going to pick up. You don't know what's going to be relevant to everyone and what they're looking for.
And I will tell you, people love food.
Yeah. which is, yeah.
Everyone's got to eat.
Yeah.
Right. Not and this is the kind of the funny part about real estate, right? When you talk about these things, it's like, again, it's also, you got to think about your audience. If you're digitally farming a neighborhood and you talk about a school, well, your demographic is a family.
Yeah.
It's not, people like Carlin from our marketing team who are single with no kids.
Yeah.
He's not going to watch it, and that's okay.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just, you also need to understand your audience, but you also want to have diverse content.
Yes.
Because then what you want to do is like, okay, so, you did the schools, you did the parks, you did the family fun in the neighborhood at different times of the year. Well, okay, but then you also want to focus on content for empty nesters. Like, hey, if you're an empty nester, why should you move to this neighborhood? Here's 5 things.
And I think too that by having, there's 2 avenues to having the content. There's one where you're trying to attract people to find you, but then there's also the audience you already have to provide value to them, where if if you're working with a buyer and they mention they like chicken wings, and you can, hey, I noticed you mentioned chicken wings, check out this video I did.
Yeah, here we go. Did this video 2 years ago. Check out these dynamite chicken wings.
And that just provides more value to them. It reestablishes that relationship, and it's you're capturing people on both sides of it, of attraction and the people you already got, which is awesome.
Yeah. And to like, you want to dig deeper into like working your database, you should have a database that allows for tags. Yeah. Because then you can tag people. So like, for instance, some tags that we have foodie. I mean, there's all the real estate ones. There's like flipper, investor, all that. Let's not talk about that because it's not that interesting. Well, everybody knows that already, right? But like, everybody in your database should be tagged. Are they family? Do they have a family? Are they single? Are they a mom? Are they a dad? Do they like craft beer? Are they foodies? Yeah. Do they like cars? Do they like sports? What kind of sports do they like? Are they pet people? Are they a coffee drinker? Are they a tea drinker?
I think that to me, if people just take away that and apply that,
dude, man, that's dynamite.
Because that really then starts creating custom content for the people, and they feel that you pay attention to them, you listen to them, and you do one video, and now and you can go through and do videos for each one of those tags and say, okay, do something for dads, do something for beer, do something for pets, and just send it out. And
well, and then like, if you think about it, then it's like, okay, touching your database, right? Then it's like, it's Father's Day is tomorrow, let's say, and it's like, okay, like, I'm gonna segment in my database everybody who's a dad. Yeah, I'm just gonna send them, like a well wishes for Happy Father's Day. Yeah. And maybe I wrote a blog of, here's 6 things to do on Father's Day. Yeah. Now that you maybe want to send it out a little earlier. Yeah. But like, for instance, we have a blog of, best restaurants to go to on your birthday. Yeah. Well, a week before I shouldn't say everybody's, but a week before most people's birthdays, if we know when their birthdays are, because we have some people in our database, we have 12,000 people. A week before, we say, here, these are our favorites. Yeah. That's awesome. Right now it's a little dicey because you can't exactly just go to them, but long term and we change it because some of those restaurants have closed. Yeah. And some will close because of the circumstances in the world right now, but others will open, and we're always changing it. But it always stays the same URL. It's on the same blog. We just update it. And then again, sending a signal to Google and all the bots and all the search engines that, hey, this isn't just stale content that never changes. We're always adding to it. We're removing to it. It's always changing, which then again, from an online relevancy, you keep going up a notch.
And I find that a lot of agents get hung up because they don't know what to send out as far as marketing. And then they try to do
they don't know anything about their database.
And they just do real estate marketing. And then they go, okay, well, I know Jane and Joe are not doing anything for 10 years or 5 years. So what do I send them? When you start creating lifestyle content, then you know what they're into, then you can provide that value to them long term and not just worry about real estate. Yeah.
Now, the hard part with that is, I mean, there's some things where like, I don't know anything about certain like running. Yeah. Man, the last time I exercised was probably a decade ago. Yeah. And that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but there's certain things like I know nothing about tea. Right. I'm a coffee drinker. Yeah. I drink green tea when I'm sick and that's it. And it's just because I like warm beverages. Right. But it's like, it's understanding that stuff about your database. And again, it's like, well, what do I send them? I don't know. If they're a beer drinker, send them a blog you wrote about the 5 craft beer places in town that they should go and see. And then when there's a new one that opens up, write an article about it, add it to the list, change the blog, like, done. And send it to them, because they're like, wow, how do you know this? And it's like, well, I don't know. Every time I go over, you give me beer. So you must like beer.
Exactly. And the thing too is, you said you may not be an expert in those things. You don't need to be by interviewing people.
No.
You let them be the expert, and you're just sharing their message with your audience, and you don't have to know everything. And
you got it.
You can still provide value. So that's really awesome. So I know for your sake of time, I want to make sure you're out of here on time. But if you could provide one last piece of advice, if someone was thinking of getting started, just what would you say?
If someone's thinking about getting started, get started now before you're really irrelevant. And that maybe doesn't sound the nicest way of saying it, but that's, I mean, whether or not, and I'm saying, like, okay, right now, like, you're seeing this, a lot of people don't like certain social media platforms, like Facebook right now is under fire for stuff. And okay, don't worry about the platform. Put it on your own blog, because you can control it and you can share it out. Start a blog. And 10 plus years ago in real estate, it was like, I remember this, where people are like, you know what, you should be starting a blog.
Yeah.
Okay, if I started one 10 years ago, my life would be a lot different today.
Yeah.
Right? And just have fun with it. Yeah. You know, hold on to the bloopers and make a blooper reel and make fun of yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's funny. Right? It makes people laugh, which then makes you, it shows to your audience that you're normal.
Yeah.
Right? Don't worry about having the most perfectly scripted video if you're doing it in video format. Don't worry about it. And just use this. Just use this. Record a video. Done. It's super simple. You don't have to go crazy and spend $10,000 on equipment. You know, a lot of cases, you got a $2,000 iPhone. You know, that's pretty advanced. The only thing that I would say is with that is maybe just pay attention to audio. Because if audio is crummy, you lose a lot of people if you're going down the avenue of video. And the benefit of why I would say people should get more comfortable with video is it resonates on social platforms much greater. But the other thing is it gives you two possibilities. You can take the audio, transcribe it into text, and then you actually then can create a very interesting blog where you would, let's say, embed your video, house it on YouTube, embed it into your blog, but then put the text below, and then that helps search engines find it.
And that's great advice. And I know from my own personal experience, I made the mistake of using a third-party blog when I first got started in real estate. I had a blog for the community and I was doing really well with it. And then that company went out of business and I lost all that traction. So I switched years ago to having a WordPress blog and owning the content, because nothing.
And think of it as it's a digital asset.
Yeah.
It's literally, that's what it is. It's a digital asset.
Yeah.
And if you're going to spend money creating content, sending out a newsletter, doing any of these things, whatever you're doing, make sure you have a digital component that you get to hold on to for entirety. The internet's not going away. Yeah. I mean, if anything, we're going to start seeing each other less and just living more online. So, you know, accept it. And you know what? If you want to practice, just practice doing funny videos with your family. Yeah. You know, if you got kids love doing videos. Just do a video with them. Like taking, you know, get your, like,
that could be your segment, doing something with your kids.
No, but
stuff
that's
to do
it.
That's
you,
an easy
like,
way to
you
do
want to talk about creating content about a neighborhood and farming that neighborhood. And let's say, like, if you really like working with young families and you have a young family, get your kids involved. Yeah. Just make sure your significant other's okay with it. Because some don't want your kids to be on. Like, but we do it with Gavin. Like, my son Gavin loves it, and he doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to do it all the time, but like every now and then he's like, get Carlin over and do a video with us. Sure.
That's awesome.
The next day he kind of forgets, but there's the like, he'll make an appearance in the Monday Market Update. Yeah. Because it's fun and they get great traction. That's the other thing.
It makes you relevant and relatable to people too. And then they connect and know you're a dad and helps them.
But the best tip is honestly just get out your cell phone, record something. You kind of don't even really need to edit it to start.
Yeah.
Some people immediately want to do that. You don't.
Yeah.
Do that a year down the road if you really want. Like layer in a fun little logo exit or intro at the start. Like once you get more advanced, sure. But to start, you really don't. Just shoot the video, house it on YouTube because it's the most versatile video platform to house things, and go from there and have fun. And do focus on things that interest you to start, because that makes you comfortable with the process of being in front of a camera. And if somebody mocks you because you stuttered, or just laugh, because who cares? We're all human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that. That's great advice. I know the audiences are going to appreciate this, and it's definitely a different, unique look on how to do this. And I know I've been chatting with you for months and months about this stuff, and it's exciting to see.
We've been talking for years about this. Months. It's been years.
But, I mean, for the launch. So what I was going to say is that we're going to put the link so people can check that out. So by the time this is out, you should have launched your site.
Yeah.
If people want to check it out, we'll put the links below. And Matt, we really appreciate it, and good luck with the launch. And hopefully the audiences will be inspired by what you're working on and do something.
And I'll throw this out just before we go, Ryan. Thanks for having me. But also, if like anybody is viewing this and they have any questions or they want to bounce an idea off me, reach out to me. Google Matthew Santagapita. There's only one of them. It's me. You'll find me on just about every social platform minus TikTok and Snapchat, because it doesn't work in my life.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Insta, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, emails, matt@santaselshouses.com. Reach out. If you got a collaboration idea, even like, hey, hit me up. Love to chat.
We'll appreciate it. And we'll put all the links to that in the bottom below. So
awesome.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for checking out today's episode. If you'd like more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and our other social media channels. Looking forward to bringing you more great content like this, and happy farming.